Okay, this is going to be a quick video on political voting habits and the philosophy and/or voting philosophy and strategy of both parties and how you are essentially shooting yourself in the foot to spite your nose. Along with corporate interference and greed in both political parties and yes, I'm sorry, I'm not some rich fucking asshole in a suit that you put up on a TV, goddamn, to tell you what to think. But hey, whatever, I'll get into that. Um, to the fucking person that logged out. Thanks a million. Um, anyways, this is going to be on that. I do have something to say about general emulation of children that I'll say towards the end of the video, but I'm saying that towards the last. First, I want to say, before I get into this, yes, the Democratic Party um, is often catered to certain groups in a exclusionary way that disenfranchises the larger bulk of the country, particularly white workers, working class white people. I think that is incompetent. I think that's inept. I think it leads to counterproductive habits on the part of white voters. Um, but I also think there is, and I have talked about that before, and much of it upsets even me, and I find a lot of hypocrisy in a lot of it. I think to act as if though, for example, even though I think Joe Biden took a more working class route and strategy this time that appealed to a large subsection of Americans, including white lower class people, um, than even Trump, I still think that what he did do was apply still too much to that middle class philosophy. You have to ask, what is middle class? Um, and that is a big part of the problem. I think when we're talking working class in the United States and the current economy, you're talking largely lower income people. I think even when talking about the working class, many people tend to often be referencing the higher income strata of even the lower income. Whereas to where in actuality, such as a 4-year college degree and higher income earning people, when in fact they should limit that, not talk as much about that, and talk more about the plight of and the issues concerning lower income people, including both white, black, Hispanic, and other people. Now then, with that being said, there is also a huge problem on the part of some white voters, particularly in rural areas and lower income voters. And look, I don't know what they believe. I don't know what many of you might believe. And you know what? I don't particularly care. Um, I have social values that are very left. I believe gays should have the right to marry who they want. I believe transgender people should be able to use the bathroom they want. I believe they should be able to live their lives as a gender they choose. I believe people should be able to smoke marijuana without being put in prison. I believe you should be able to largely do what you want. I believe people who have drug addiction, they have a sickness and we should treat that, so on and so forth. But with that being said, even if you are some kind of right wing person, even if you're a right wing lunatic fascist, you really have to question many of your voting habits. Because if you vote based on policy alone, if you based on the actual fucking things that will result in positive change in America for the lower income individuals, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, nationality, or social status, you're voting wrong. Um, if you are more concerned, for example, with your religion and with setting policy based on absurd religious belief, if you are more obsessed with keeping an Hispanic person from getting Social Security, welfare, food stamp, medical aid, Medicare, healthcare, because for some reason you don't think they should have that, even if they are illegal. Ask yourself this: whose money is largely being paid into that if you're in the lower income? Is it your money or is it the upper class? And those same people that don't want that person to get that money. Believe me, keep in mind, believe it or not, they don't want you to be able to get that money either. And just as Trump did, just as he said about illegal immigrants, then he said about black protesters, as he will say about you. Just as he is now trying to challenge what I believe to be the almost undeniable results of an election. And they go after the lesser in society, those who are marginalized, who have less ability to make change, to affect change, positive change for themselves or for anyone else, and then they come after you. And it's a gradual process. You saw this in Nazi Germany. So those people that don't want those immigrants to collect Social Security, food stamps, welfare, Medicare, Medicaid, healthcare, they have and they will continue to in the future come after you. Come after you for your issues, and they will try to prevent you from getting and collecting many of these programs. So you, by the way, as you would say, have yourself largely paid into. Many of you have maybe, or some of you have served in the military. You go back generations into this country. They will come after you, and they will take your money, just as they want to the immigrants. Just as they have opposed the immigrant, they oppose yours. The same people who were against the immigrant in the Victorian era often tend to be the same fucking people that were against workers' rights, higher wages for workers, less hours, more pay for more hours, overtime, and into child labor in the Victorian era, in different points in history in America and in England and in other countries. They are the same fucking people that also tend to be against the immigrant. And the reason they're doing this, in fact, isn't so much because they want to end immigration into America, but because they want to subjugate and take advantage of immigrant workers, because they know they can't end immigration and ultimately aren't even trying to. And they're willing to raise billions of your dollars in order to confuse you and trick you into thinking you can stop that in order to simply keep it illegal so that they can charge them less money, even if they are less skilled, because it's ultimately about paying as little as possible to get as much, because they're greedy. And it's about limiting your rights as American workers, and they want to pay as cheaply and as small of a wage as possible to workers and is to lower income individuals. And that is what this is about. And they're not trying to even stop immigration, because if they were to pay them the same as they would pay, for example, you, and you are equal, is what would happen if you legalize the immigrants. What would happen is, well, they wouldn't hire them over you because you would be the same price. There would be no incentive to hire them. So you would be competing for the same jobs at the same price. They wouldn't be exploited. They wouldn't be worked and then often deported anyways. And you wouldn't be losing jobs and having to work for lower wages, because you're both legal and you're both competing on an equal playing field. This is the big secret that Republicans know. The biggest way to stop or to end illegal immigrants, cutting wages, or preventing Americans from getting working class jobs in an unfair way, is to simply legalize them and make it where you have to pay them the same for the same job, and make it where they can report and go to the authorities if they are being taken advantage of by their job or by their boss or career, if those people want to limit their rights as a worker. And I got way too much into that, but that is how you are undermining your interests, basically, in the long run. That is what they're doing. And you're being tricked in many ways into undermining your rights and your own rights. And this is idiotic. Your religion is your religion. You can believe that if you want. Keep that to yourself. You have no right to mix up with politics. You have no right to pose with a Bible, or have a president who poses with a Bible in front of a church after he gasses peaceful protesters, something that seemed weird and totally random to me. Whether you're Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, you have no right to put prayer or somehow enforce prayer or in any way put that off on the other people in a classroom, in a school. It should not override science, override national belief. You're voting on these things. You're voting based on totally fictitious things that many of us don't believe in and that you have no proof of. And you're putting that above class worker rights. And even if you look in your religions, those who help the poor, those who help the sick, those who provide pay to fucking people who are working very low wages for very low job, for very bad jobs, for very low wages, those who want to give health care to the sick, those who want to heal the sick. Those are, even in your religion, even in Christianity, for example, even in Islam for that matter, those are things that you would think maybe you would support and work towards, but instead you're more concerned with these social, cultural issues where you want to flatter your ego. It's all about the ego. It's all about you. And you have to do this. And you see the same thing with feminists, and I'm about to go into that. And that feminists are one of the things that have deeply hurt, I think, the Democratic Party more than any other part of identity politics, and even more than, or not as much, almost as much as corporate greed. And that is corporations, and they have used feminism many times. Corporations have used in banking interests, and corporations have used feminism, the wealthy, the industrialists, they have the industrial class, they have used feminism to both divert female interests, to divide the working class. They used it, in my opinion, including with the CIA, who funded Miss Magazine and Gloria Steinem. They are using that they used it to collapse the counterculture in 1960s America, and divide up the counterculture and the hippie movement, and basically destroy the hippie movement. And they're using it to divide votes and divide up the working class and divert from working class issues in America. And we see this, and I want to end on this. I can't think of her name. I think Pam Keith or something. That might not be her name. And I forget what state she's in. Says something to the effect of, and she uses circumcision or genital mutilation of infants and says, we do this to a lot of baby boomers anyways. Why not do a vasectomy at the same time? And she's using this. She says this was from over a year ago, where I saw more and more arrogance on the part of some people who identify as erring or being on part of the left, about issues like this and attacking men and so forth, and absurd things said about males and so forth. Here's my opinion on that. The fact that you're using that to parody abortion because, well, we can't dance on their rights and their body rights or their rights or autonomy, but you're never even taking into consideration the fact that many of us, and I would argue there's almost no way to not think that the circumcision or mutilating the child genitals in the first place is already dancing on their autonomy. You're already taking their rights to body. You're already taking their right to choice over what they want to do with their body. You're already doing that. And you have done that before any issue of abortion has even taken into consideration. If anything, you are a self-parody. You parody yourself with this nonsense. You are not making that point. And again, that is a part of the problem. This is many of these conservatives, these right-wing voters, Alex Jones, who went through years and years of saying time and time again under many, many, many people, and sometimes being right and sometimes being wrong about both Bush and Obama. He recently said he basically agreed with some asshole he had on his show that wanted Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act. He wanted him to bring in the military, literally, to prevent him from leaving office. And Alex Jones literally cheered and suggested basically an agreement, or suggested basically that Trump should invoke the Insurrection Act, basically declare martial law and bring in a police state so that he doesn't leave office. Does this not sound like absurd to you? And this is the man who talked about one world government and government dictatorship. And now you're seeing many of these Republicans cheer and defend the same things they themselves condemned and said they were against for years. But now here they are themselves defending these things. So I just want to leave it there. That's just my opinion. And I think it says a lot about the right wing. And I think Alex Jones said it very well himself. Some of the worst Nazis disguise themselves as caring about constitutionality and liberty and freedom in the American government and other things. Well, yet they have no faith in our elections. They he just suggested Trump not leave office and call and declare an insurrection and use the Insurrection Act. Trump himself is doing this. Trump also wanted to bring in the military against the protesters. As we know, they want to continually, increasingly involve the religion and personal life. These people want war. Trump talks about getting us out of Iraq. He has done nothing to. He had 4 years. He hasn't gotten us out of any of these wars, not that Biden will either. And you have big problems and major problems on both ends of the political spectrum with basic populist, left-wing common sense and humanist ideals that we need to accept as a society, having to do with human beings and helping them and protecting their interests, human rights, human dignity that we're not doing. And that's all. P666.